Where are we? This is actually very exciting. And I have to tell you something. I've actually just come off a Khala make, which is like really, but I wasn't doing the Khala. They just wanted me to be able to share some spiritual things of Khala. And I was so happy that I had made 2 loads of Khala. So I was able to I didn't even think when I was speaking there for 15 minutes to make a bracha on the challah. And then I'm sitting there and thinking, you know what? I've got 2 bags of challah to make a bracha on. So we'll do one before and we'll finish off tonight, obviously with the bracha on our challah. And the other thing is that I've done something very special this week, which is, don't ask me why, because it's only a couple of weeks till we get to Pesach, but I made sourdough. And I can't say sourdough bread yet because this long, whatever, Daniela, it's lovely to see you there too. I'm hoping that, I'd love to say, let me say hello to the twins, but I'm hoping that they're asleep. So really what it is, that we're in this time and I'm thinking to myself, like, why are you making sourdough? Well, I'll tell you the truth. I went for a walk with a friend of mine and I heard she makes great sourdough. So when she was coming to go for a walk, I said, well, I'll have some starter. And she brought me starter. So once she brought me the starter, you have to use it, right? So I had to use it and and I'll only tell you after tomorrow, after we bake this wonderful sourdough and see what it is. But we're not really here to be speaking about our dough. What are we here for? I don't know about all of you, but I just want to begin. And I see Pat there, and I have my phone open here. So we're going to say that we want to have a refuah shalema for Tzvi Yosef ben Feivel, should have a refuah shalema. And I have to tell you something. One of the things that, as somebody said to me, can I add a name to a name? And it was Pat who said to a long list. But I want you to know something, that one of the challenges that we are all dealing with, and I'm going to also specifically say for Tzipora Bas Sophie and Zev ben Liba, for Chanoch ben Blimela, and for Chaichi Bas Rivka Sarah, and really all of Klal Yisrael. We are really going through what we had all hoped to be a time where we would be finished by now. We all hoped that this Pesach we would be, who knows where? And it definitely, for sure, we were not going to be in a place where we were going to be alone and separated. We were going to be in a place where we would be with our family, and maybe there was going to be another destination that we were going to actually get to. Who knows? You know, and where everybody keeps saying, and I certainly am one of those people that keep saying, I should have been, I was supposed to be, I could have been, I would have. By this stage, a year gone by, I definitely should have been at least 3 or 4 times in Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't make sense. And the place where we all need to go and be nurtured from, where we need to go and take in a little bit to give us a little bit of extra oomph to be able to say we need to carry on. And you know what? Every time we think we're getting there, Hashem says, no, not yet. Not yet. And we all asking why? Why? And you know what? So I'm just seeing if there's, oh gosh, I'm really sorry. There's nobody here in my house. This is one of the challenges. Oh dear. See? Baruch Hashem for the challenges of life, of front doorbells ringing, people still pop past, okay? So, we all think we should be in places. And my question and our questions are, why are we not there yet? And I'm going to ask you all a question. Do you know one reason why we haven't yet greeted Meshech? And maybe we could start with asking one question, maybe why it is that we can think from somebody else's perspective, why Meshech hasn't come yet, not because of me, But maybe I can look and say, what is it that somebody else hasn't yet done that we have not yet merited to go and greet Meshech and to be in Yerushalayim? Why has Hashem made this thing still stay? Because we can call it COVID. We can call it all the different things that we call it. But we have to remember that at every single moment that the only reason it is here is because Hashem wants it to be here. And there has to be a lesson that we all supposed to be learning just by the fact that it is still here. And what is it? And sometimes I certainly will look at myself and say, okay, but I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't have to share everything. Okay. I'm working hard. I can tell you that much. I'm working hard. And it's not just the hours and it's not just physical work. The work that we do, that every time we're learning something in Torah, every time that we're learning, whether it's Shabbos, whether it's about Lashon Hara, whether it is about personal integration ourselves, personal growth, looking at other people, whatever it is. If I had to say to Hashem, Hashem, do you know how many meals I have made over this year that I have sent out just to be nice to people? If I had to count those, do you think you're going to take that and use that for everybody? And I keep looking and I think to myself, you know, I love Pesach. I actually really, really do. I think it's the most wonderful, fantastic, awesome, and sometimes very difficult work holiday. It's a chag. But you know what it does for us? And I want to tell you something that I think that last year people had a lot of surprises when it came to Pesach. And I'm going to repeat, I'm not talking about anybody who had to sit totally by themselves, because my heart goes out to anyone who has to sit and have a Seder alone. It really does. Unless they're really okay with being with themselves and Hashem. And I remember so clearly hearing the most beautiful story about Rav David Grossman. I don't know how many of you know who Rav David Grossman is, but Rav David Grossman runs a place in Migdal HaEmek, and he has changed the entire face of the city, of the town, from a place of downtrodden people to a place that is hustling and bustling with beautiful, frum, growing Torah institutions and awesome places. And he was flown to a place in America. He was flown over to America to go and be there for a child, somebody's bar mitzvah, one of his donors' son's bar mitzvah. And when he got to this hotel, which they had organized the highest level for his own personal catering of kashrut and the Sefer Torah and everything, because Rabbi Grossman was going to be running the whole Shabbat there, he looked, and everywhere he went, and he had to say to his hosts, there is no way that I can move out of my hotel room. There's just no way, according to halacha, that I can keep Shabbos by walking out of my room, because everything was electronic. And Rabbi Grossman spends the entire Shabbos. They give him everything that he needs, or everything he thinks he needs. And he said he had one of the most spiritually uplifting Shabboses that he had had. It was him and Hashem. And that's what it was. But I'm going to put in the caveat and say that he knew, well, he hoped that it was only going to be just that Shabbos. So I really do want anybody who is possibly, and we've still got a chance that it's going to change. Okay, nothing, Hashem brought it this way and it can end this way. But it's not simple. But we've got another task that we've got to do, because before Pesach actually arrives, we need to clear out, or at least close up. And I really want to encourage everybody to do not spring cleaning. I don't like spring cleaning, but I want to tell you today, well, yesterday, I realized that I lost my passport. Now, how did I realize I lost my passport? I'm not traveling anywhere, but I needed my passport to go somewhere, and I needed a picture identification, And everybody says, well, what about your driver's license? And I said, well, actually, I've still got a paper one. I only have a paper driver's license, but I couldn't find my passport. I'm thinking, where could this passport be? Anyway, I think I've learned over the years, and I'm going to say over the many years, not to worry about these things. Some people have actually been with me on a trip where we've been in a taxi on the way to the airport, and I've suddenly said, my passport. And I did have a miracle because my husband actually brought the passport to the hotel, to the airport. And I actually, before we even got to the front of the line, I could run out and pick up my passport. So I wasn't particularly worried. The thing was that I really didn't want to worry the person who I was going to meet that I didn't have yet my passport at 10 o'clock this morning. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've got share from 10 till 11. Okay. And what can I tell you? I am waiting, thinking, okay. And then one of my daughters popped by and she said, do I want to go for a quick walk? And I thought, okay, I'll look after. How many times does your daughter come and say, do you want to go for a walk in the middle of the day, sun shining, and we've got half an hour, go for a walk? And then I came back and I said, okay, Hashem, I'm going to give it till this time. But already last night, I'd literally spent maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours looking for it. But I hadn't yet put my money into Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes. I hadn't yet done that. So I took my pound. Hi, Danny. I took my pound and I stood next to my tzedakah box and I said the words very, very, very clearly and out loud. And I said, Hashem, in the merit of, and I put my money in and I started looking. And I have to say, I did a lot of looking before I got, wasn't that much, but I gave myself until 1:45, at 20 to 1. Okay, it was only about 20 minutes, I have to add that. I decided I'm going to look in the bag that we keep with all the old passports that have expired. And I looked, and there was my passport. And what did I want to say? I really might have wanted to have sort of like, what do you think you would do? Because it wasn't me, okay? It was obviously the other half. So I just very calmly said, isn't it funny? What was my passport doing in the bag with the old passports? And at that moment, I said to myself before, remind yourself what you're trying to clean out. Remind yourself what you're trying to get rid of. Just know that Hashem wants something a little bit more from us right now. Hashem is looking to us and he's saying, you know what? What are they going to do? These are my people. These are my beautiful children who make everything look so beautiful, who want to have all the best and the nicest of everything. But maybe we're overlooking something, which is forgetting to be sensitive to other people. Maybe there's something somewhere in the past where we said or did something which didn't really match up to the way we should have behaved with somebody else. And you know what's really funny? About 20 years ago, I was just thinking of a situation that happened 20 years ago, not right now, but during the week. And I thought to myself that I knew just about everything. I really thought that I knew exactly what was right and best and whatever. And I asked advice because I always try and do that, especially when it's big stuff. And I remember Rebbetzen Khala, Rebbetzen Gottlieb, saying to me, you don't have to be strict on everything. And it wasn't on myself, it was on somebody else. Let go. And you know that moment where you let go of something and you just feel, it's just a little bit of extra energy that we have that just makes us feel a little bit lighter. Because as we mature and as we learn and as we grow, we start looking not at the things that I want and the things that I need, but we start looking out at other people and differences and looking what I can learn from somebody else. And I want you to know that when I thought about exactly this one instance, I actually recognized that I had to make a phone call to somebody I actually didn't. I sent a message because they keep American late times. And I said, you know what? I said, I want you to know something. I was just thinking about this time when, and I know that we both thought that we were both right and it was that side and that side. But I want you to know, even if I thought that I was right, I never allowed you to think that we were both had our own opinions. And I just want to apologize. And you know, it's not about the other person. And that's what we start recognizing. That it's really about ourselves. And when Hashem wants us to come into a place where we're going to be able to greet Meshech, it's going to be a very, very hard place. For the beginning part, we're all going to have to find out who's who, where we're all from, what we're doing. So why not already utilize this time that we have now to say, what is it that's holding me back? When I spoke to Nat and I spoke about the ingredients that we put into our Khala, the ingredient that makes our Khala rise is the yeast. The yeast, right? So the yeast gives us place for expansion. So what is expansion? If the yeast gives us place for expanding, it means that we think that we're done and we can't do anything more than what we've done. We can do a tiny little bit more, tiny little bit more. And Hashem gives us an ability to expand. But we have to recognize where it comes from. And the minute I think that it's me, myself, and I doing it, we're bordering on that thing called arrogance. And not in a hoity-toity way, but just inside. And it's sometimes very difficult to differentiate between that and that. And we have to look and say, okay, what is it about? Who is it about? But when something holds me back, and even sometimes a place of arrogance can hold a person back from doing something, then we look at those things called the Meitzarim, which comes also from the word Mitzrayim, the narrow straits which actually stop us from being able to be the best that we can be. And everybody has something which holds them back. It's about finding out what it is and getting rid of it. In the world that we're living in today, there's a lot of physical things that are holding us back. A lot. Unfortunately, for better or worse, all the different extras of the drugs, the alcohol, wants only for money, not because we need the money for whatever we're doing or giving more to tzedakah, but just wanting to be able to say, I made it, I did it, right? You know, sometimes you see somebody driving a fancy car and they sort of like at the traffic lights, I don't know if you've ever had the experience, and they start revving up the car. And then like they go, and like, you know, in South Africa, it's called Khala racetrack. Okay, Jen, right? You can have a good giggle at that one. So any South Africans, you went to Khala and anybody was being really stupid on the road, right? And trying to be like a young, I don't know, you know, young kids. I don't know why they give them the licenses at that time, but, you know, sometimes we have to look at what can happen to somebody, chas v'shalom, but we've got to be able to see this. Okay. Oh, thanks, Rebecca. I've been practicing that for a long time. Okay. And when you sit there and suddenly who are they showing off for? What are they doing? Right? Who cares? Who cares? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we are responsible for is not the car, not anything. We come into this world with nothing and we're going to leave with nothing. Accepting you for who you are and who you have become. Now, for those of you who don't know yet that I and we are real Rabbi Twersky fans, okay? And when people say, you know, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, having passed already the Shloshim of Rabbi Twersky, it's pretty difficult. Not just knowing, you know, that he's not here in the world with us. And there's so much that we have learned and we can continue to learn. And that's why when I speak about our teachers, we can speak about them in the present as if they're here, because we're learning from them and we can quote them because that's what they say. They said it, it's here, and they say it. And I literally, over the last year, sitting in front of me, I've sat at this table for a year. I changed the chair around. I usually sit in front of that one, but now I'm sitting in front of this Jerusalem. There's Jerusalem on that side and Jerusalem on that side. Okay. But in front of me are bookcases full of our holy, beautiful books. And I have, sitting right in front of me, I have Dan Lopian, Zecher Tzadik Libracha, I have the Chofetz Chaim, I have Rabbi Twersky, I have Rebbetzen Kanievsky, and many others. And in my cabinet, and I can tell my mother as well, that in my Shabbos candles, my cabinet there, I have my very special picture that I have actually of my mother, my grandmother, Ala Shalom, my daughter Naomi, and myself when we went to visit once in South Africa. And it sits next to my candles. When we light our Shabbos candles, that's what we want. We bring it with us. So when we live from the people that we learn from, we have to remind ourselves and know who they were, right? And that's why we want to go when we go and visit the graves of the holy tzaddikim. Why do we want to go to the place of Kever Rachel? We want to go because we want to hold on and we want to have that connection. Why? Because we want to learn to emulate who they are and where they're from. And Rabbi Twersky's grandson, Chaim Twersky, Rav Chaim Twersky, spoke at his off by the Shloshim, by the end of the 30th day. And he said one of the most remarkable things that I've heard. Firstly, he said something beautiful. He said they knew their grandfather growing up was a special man. They knew that. But they didn't know that he was that famous. He just didn't know he was famous. Isn't that funny? You know, like, here we go. It was like, but until we know and understand a little bit of who he was, and we had the merit of welcoming him into our home, both in the home we lived there and here, it's huge, right? I've got a picture of him sitting here with the kids on the couch. It's like, there's no grandiose, no nothing. The humility is unbelievable. It was so tangible. And it was real. And his grandson said like this, it was only a little while ago, shortly before he passed away. At the age of 90, and you've written 90 books. And not just written 90 books who nobody reads, but many of them, and Deborah Kay can remember when there was a sale, I said, go and get this and this, and you could hardly get them in the shelves. There were a few more in Manchester than were in London. Okay. And it was like, wow. And he said to his grandson, he said, first you could speak to him about anything and everything. And he made you feel good about what you spoke to him about. And then he said, I don't know. He says, I've got to think about what I've got to do today. I don't feel that I'm being productive. And he looked at him, he says, what do you mean? How can you say such a thing? He says, you've learned through Mesilas Yesharim, okay, path of the just 250 times. You learn and you know all the Svarim and you know this and you've written 90 books and you've helped literally thousands and thousands of people regain themselves. He literally gave birth to people through helping them through their addictions. Can you imagine? And he says, in his 90th year, he's saying, I haven't. And he says to him, he says, that what was? Yeah, I've done that. No gaiva, no arrogance. Yeah, that I did. I did it. I did it well. But today's another day. Today I have to know what it is that I have to do better in. And I actually thought to myself, you know, when I listened to this, I just started learning. Somebody asked me if I'll do a short amount of learning once a week at night, actually one of my daughters-in-law. And I said, sure. We're thinking, what should we do? And we came down to either Pirkei Avos or to Mesilas Yesharim. I said, you know what? I feel like I need to relearn Mesilas Yesharim. We'll do Rabbi Twersky's lights along the way. And as we started learning this, and I'm listening and we're learning, I'm thinking, you know, the introduction, the Ramchal tells us, he says, what do you think's new? There's nothing new under the sun. We all know it. But we have to remind ourselves. We have to reconnect and we have to remind ourselves, because it was okay yesterday when I was feeling energetic and okay to stop myself from getting upset with somebody. I was okay then. Today, when I'm tired and I've had to do this and this and this, I just got a bit upset. And the Ramchal say, we know what it is that we have to do. We just have to keep redoing it. And we've got to keep relearning it. And we've got to keep re-inspiring ourselves to do it. So when people do say, what are we supposed to be doing? You know what my internal feeling is? We need, every single day, we need to do a tiny little bit more that just says, I'm working on being closer to Hashem and getting rid of anything that I feel negatively about somebody else. Sometimes I get a little bit upset when I think about it and I think, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that that person annoys me so much. You know, you just think about a person's name and you think like, oh my gosh, you know, I just did a beautiful, beautiful Bat Mitzvah program. I do one anyway in Seed for mums and daughters, Bat Mitzvah program in Seed. And somebody asked if I would do with them a program for Bat Mitzvah girls. And we made a beautiful program. And I have to tell you something, I loved it. Yes, Deborah Kay, come back to that because you're right. Okay. I loved the program and they loved it. And the moms and the girls, and we all had a great time, and it was 5 weeks. And in the last session, I asked some of them what they thought, what they learned, and I said, you know, that there's something I want to share with them. I'm blessed to be a grandmother. And I always add in, I'm also blessed to be a daughter. I'm blessed to be a mother. And I can tell you that over my years and my learning and everything, I'm now learning at least 4 times a week in the evening with 2 granddaughters, and we're going and learning through Pirkei Avos. And it's the most beautiful thing. And we've got Zoom, and we learn together, and we grow together. And I told these young girls, I said, you know what? Don't ever blame lack of inspiration on anybody else but yourself. We need to re-inspire ourselves. And we need to constantly work on it. And while we're working on this, we have to consider it that this is part and parcel of our Yetzias Mitzrayim, our leaving this place, is creating, as Deborah said, we make for ourselves. What do we make for ourselves? We make it a Rosh Hashanah. And maybe an Erev Yom Kippur every now and again to remind ourselves of how we get to that place. We remind ourselves, we wake up in the morning and we say, you know, Hashem, look at this beautiful thing that you've given me. And today, when I am going to start my Pesach cleaning, I'm going to be saying, thank you, Hashem. And if we need extra help to do, and we're going to say, you know what, Hashem, this is not the easiest thing and easiest time to do. So you know what, I need a partner. And if everybody else is going to ignore me in the house, could you help? Could you help me? And if I say you help me, it makes it lighter for me. But if I do need the extra help, don't be shy or scared to ask for it, because Hashem will help you that way. And he'll send somebody else, or in a way that he'll make that happen, as long as we put it in his hands. And when we understand that, and when I feel that thing, and we say, when I feel that negativity, I like things. Yeah, we all like nice things. Yeah, there's some people that might even be here that can giggle and laugh because I like my jewelry. We like our things. What do we need things for? Anybody know? Do you know what it's like to schlep things around the place and the world? We're not in the place where we're going to be staying. Anybody in a place where we're going to be staying? In Yerushalayim, if you're meriting now to live in Yerushalayim, that's a place you can stay. And if you're not there yet, then that's our aspiration. But I want to tell you that we've got a lot to learn. We've got a place that we have to learn, that we've got to get to. Do you want to take chicken as well? Okay. We've got a place, sorry, just one of my daughters. We've got a place that we have to learn that we want to be, because we want to feel complete with who we are. And what is that thing that is the negativity that is stopping me from being that? And we have to look and see what is it that I. What is it? Sorry, you've got to help as well. That was hard. Huh? What is it that I have to do? And wherever that place is, and it's going to be a hard place, because easy places we don't have to worry about leaving behind. The easy things we want to have with us. It's the things that are the challenging places that hold me back and stop me from being the complete person that I am, that Hashem gave me that blessing of being. And when we actually relinquish ourselves and say, Hashem, we're your children. Just help us to do the best that we can do. You know, when we get stuck in places, when we value things that maybe aren't the right values, sometimes we have to learn to reevaluate. And it's okay. Because when we know what's really important, the thing that's really important is that thing that we're going to walk out of Mitzrayim with. We're going to leave Egypt. We're going to be leaving the place that holds me back. And I'll make the simple things. I spend my life actually going on and off diets, okay? I start a new one every Sunday, right? Sometimes I merit to pass over 2 Sundays and I've had a good Shabbos and that's been great as well. And when I told somebody that I've lost 20 kilos this lockdown, they looked at me as if to say, you haven't really. And I said, yes, I have. And I said, well, that's just because it's probably, no, it's not 20. I worked out it's only 18, okay? Because between what I've lost and put on over the entire year, just in like 2, 3, 4, 5 kilos, you know, that's all. Like 3, 4, 5, and then you put on 4, 5, and then 3, 4, 5, and we put on 4, 5. So what does it do for me? Okay, it doesn't really allow me to be free. But if I did the thing that I'm supposed to really do, and I know I'm supposed to do it, I know the answers. I know the answers. So what if I have to make chocolate chip cookies for another 20 people? I don't have to eat 6 or 7 and check by the 8th or the 9th that it tastes good. And I know that. But somehow, wait for this. Anybody ever have a full cookie? I'm going to have a biscuit or a muffin. No, don't be silly. You know, if anybody did our paintings and you had those carrot muffins, I only had a quarter. I had a quarter at least 6 or 7 times, but I only had a quarter. Okay. Now, if we recognize these beautiful little gorgeous things in us, and we say, it's okay, those cinnamon buns, those are the worst. I promise you could have 2 muffins for like half of one of those cinnamon buns. And you only pick at it. You never have a whole cinnamon bun. Okay. We know. It's just simple. There's not even a mathematics to do. So when we know we're doing, why is it that we fall into the trap? It's just simply that place that the Yetzer Hara does not want Mashiach. Do you know that? Do you know that? The Yetzer Hara does not want Mashiach. You know how we know that? Because he makes us do the things that we don't want to do. And when Mashiach comes, the Yetzer Hara is gone. That part is gone. There's no more distracting us. There's no more things that say to us, you're done, you're finished. It's there. And we are going to be free of that. But until we get there, and it's not a long time, even in the maths of the longest amount of time that Meshech is going to come, is not very long. And that's why we can do our thing to say he's going to be here very soon. And one of my favorite lines, besides my tambourines and besides this and us dancing at the kotel, one of my favorite things to know is that every single day, we are one day closer to Meshech coming. We're one day closer to Shabbos all the time. We don't even have to go from Thursday to Thursdays. We're going to have this beautiful place and clarity. Imagine, is it this or is it this? Is it this or is it this? Should I think this or should I think that? And you know what you've got to imagine when that's happening? That there's a rope. And the rope which Hashem is swinging is very hard. I don't know how many of you here in London last night, I can tell you in Golders Green, the wind was just like something else. There were bins blowing around. You could hear things bashing. And when you heard that wind, and I woke up once or twice and I heard the wind and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, before the pandemic started, do you remember the weather? Anybody remember the weather that we're having here? I was supposed to fly to Germany to speak at a conference. And you know what? 3 times my flight. And I sat at the airport and 4 or 5 planes. And then I finally went home because it was too late to go because I would have missed 2 days, not just one. Hashem is running this world. And I don't know what the answers are of what it is he exactly wants from everybody. But I know that there's one thing for sure. I know that he wants us to be looking to see how we can look at the world in a place where Hashem is constantly. And when I want to do things that are the right way to do them, it's going to be because I want Hashem to be part of my life and my days. And when we heard this morning, for anybody that joined me this morning with Rachel Silva, and we were going through the beautiful words of Khala, and we understand and we know, can you imagine what it's going to be? Can you imagine being near the house of Yishai? When Shmuel HaNavi comes and he says, bring me your sons. And he says, no, none of these. And then he says, you must have another son. And there David HaMelech comes and the oil comes straight out of the carrot. Can you imagine being in those times? And what are we all shouting? And what do we have to look now? We've got to say, this is what we want. But if we want it, it means personal work. If we want it, it means that it's got to be a little bit more difficult. It doesn't have to come easy. And in fact, it's probably not supposed to. Because the harder we work for something, it actually becomes more important to us when we get to that place of what it is that we gain. So when we feel like a human being, like a person who's accomplished something, because today I'm going to sit back and I'm actually going to say, it's not about the things I managed to do. It's about how I behaved with the things that I did. And those are the things that we look at. You know, I can tell you, I felt very proud of myself when I did not even flinch thinking about, okay, what's the worst that can happen if I don't find my passport? What's the worst? I would have to phone one of the Dayanim who know me and say that this has happened and could they please come and verify that it's me to let me in? Okay. I didn't panic about it. You know why? Because it was something that I knew that Hashem wanted me to be doing, and he had helped me get there. Whichever way it was going to be, he's going to help us get there. But it's how we get there. And when I sit down and when I write down my gratitudes can change from physical things to spiritual things. Our gratitudes, which we count and we look at and we say, you know what, Hashem, this year I am going to, please God, be able, well, we'll write that down afterwards when I get there. But my Pesach is going to be a Pesach of simplicity, because how many desserts do you need to make? How many fancy dishes do we really need? What did we have all those years ago? What did we need for Pesach, right? It was easier. It might have been harder work, but it was easier because we didn't have to think about all these fancy dishes and follow all these simple, elaborate, fantastic, beautiful, gorgeous looking things. A nice shawarma back then. And let me tell you, because that's what Rabbi David Orlovsky used to say. Just wait. Just wait, Because when we're really going to be having Pesach, we're going to be having that good old laffa pita, and we're going to be taking from the Paschal lamb, and we are going to have shmama on our chaise lounge in front of the Kosher. Can you imagine that? That's what we're going to be doing. I think that sounds pretty good. Okay. So why don't we want it even more? And this has to be the place that I want us all to do a little bit of homework. I want that place to be able to feel that I can follow myself. That when I say that I'm coming to my personal redemption, is making the lists of things that I know that I need to do about me. It's about me. It means that I've got to learn to look at others. I've got to learn to look at the people that are the closest to me and actually look at how I can learn something from them rather than thinking that I've got to teach them to be like me. Okay? There are lots of things. I think, when we do things, we obviously usually think that we're doing it in the right way. But sometimes it's the right way for me, but not the right way for somebody else. And we have to learn that process. And that's okay, because Hashem put us into the world as different people. And he says, okay, I know that you think that the way you want to do it is staying in your place and doing it the way you want to do. But when you think about the Khala, and what do we do with our Khala? We take strands and we plait them together and we bake them. And once they get them plaited together, you can't separate them anymore. They're one. And for some people who are good enough to do their 6 plaited Khalas, they can do a 6 plait and a 6 plait, and they can put them together and they can say, here we have the 12 tribes together. Put them on top of each other, next to each other, whichever way you want. This is the entire Jewish nation. And you know what? We're all just as good as the next. Different, maybe different, but we're all in it together. And when we let go of that, and when we look to see how can I let go of that, how can I be somebody who's going to be able to say, this is going to be my Yetzias Mitzrayim. I'm leaving Egypt now because I want to feel more complete. And as many times as I've said it, both Rosh Hashanah and Pesach, that bondage of what is it? Those things that make us feel that that's not what we wanted to really do. That I've got to be able to say now while I'm cleaning out for Pesach, I don't want that. I don't want that. And you know what? When we close cupboards, we don't see anything. And we're allowed to do that with chametz, and you're allowed to make your lives easier, and you do not need to do spring cleaning, just to remind you, okay? You do not even have to throw away all the food. For some people, it is their stringencies not to keep any chametz in their house. That's okay. And you're allowed to take on your own stringencies, but don't put any onto anybody else, okay? And in our homes, we have to be able to say, this is how we do. And we've got to do the things that we do. And when we go and we look for our chametz in our house, Erev, Yom Tov, we're going to be doing it all early this year. Well, we're going to still do that on Thursday. But imagine this beautiful chag that we're given this year. Imagine how fantastic. Shabbos afternoon, shlof. Not only Shabbos afternoon, Erev Seder. Your Pesach Seder. You're going to be awake. There's nothing you can do on Shabbos afternoon. What's done is done. And we have to enjoy that. And we've just got to be a little bit more organized and say everything has to be done by Friday. And we've got to be prepared. So we don't have to stress over the chametz in our house. If we're going to eat, where we're going to eat our bread and be finished by 10 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be finished eating any chametz. But we've got to recognize the fact that with every single move and thing that we make, we are looking to say, we're doing, our houses are going to be kosher Pesach. There's no question about that. And if you don't know how to do it, make sure that you find out how to do it in the easiest, most comfortable way. And if you need help with cooking food and you need help with bringing food in, ask. Because I can tell you there are lots and lots of people who want to be there to do and to help. And that's what we are. We're a nation who does that because we care about everybody as though we're the same body. When your finger hurts, when somebody else is in pain, what other nation is there that worries about the Jewish people wherever they are? That's who we are. We feel the pain. And we understand that it's something that we're going to work with. We understand that every different Jew is going to be gathering in. And for anybody who's been with me to Israel, we're all waiting to go back again. But this is the time that we have to acknowledge where all the Jews are coming from all over the world. Aliyah is on the up. Even if it means because Hashem is squeezing the Jews out of other places. He's putting us there because this is the place that we're all going to need to get to together. And this is the beginning parts of it. And we need to recognize that. But we have to be wholesome. And we have to listen to the stories. And we've got to understand that every person has their own story. And if you had to go even around the screen, we'd be here for hours, listening to every single person account of their life, of their personal Yetzirah. And every year, we move. And you know why? Because we live conscious lives and we are aware of ourselves. And every year we grow and we mature and we do it again. And that's why when somebody like Rabbi Twersky can say at the age of just before I think he's probably already 90 then, and he says, today, it's not about what I've done in the past, it's today. Every single day counts. And today, we're a new person from what we were yesterday. And so as we take this with us, we're going to take ourselves and we're going to experience this coming out of Egypt. And you know how it's going to feel? It's going to feel blissful. So when we sit at our Seder and we're telling over the stories and we're learning and we're growing together, and even if it's with ourselves, and we say, this is the story. This is my story. This is how I got here. And every one of us has their own story. So each and every one of us has to look for the place that they are able to grow to the next place. So when we ask ourselves the questions, what holds me back? What am I scared of? What's my fears? Why does it hold me back? What is it? The physical, the spiritual, the emotional? What are the things that I want? What are the things that I'm trapped by? The trappings are many, many. You know, even shopping. Shopping. You know, we can't do that shopping. I'm so happy. It's like the biggest blessing in my life. I dislike shopping. Okay, I'm one of those people. I don't like shopping. Don't enjoy it. Don't get anything out of it. In fact, it's just my children used to hate going shopping with me. They still don't. You know, I walk in, nothing here, let's go. Okay, it's like, that's what it is. But you know what? Even shopping things, you know, everybody knows they get everything sent in and then they're going to send it back. But I've done that once or twice, not for my things, and it's a pain in the neck. You've got to print out a return label, you've got to re-stick up the thing, and then you've got to go and stand in line at the post office. You know what those lines at the post offices are like now, right? Just go into a normal shop. We can't even do that. But for some things and some people, maybe it's something that it takes them away from actually becoming a better person. So somebody asked me once, she's blessed. She said to me, I'm very blessed. I can walk into shops, I can buy whatever I want. But really, sometimes I feel bad. So what do you mean you feel bad? She said, well, I feel bad about what I spend. And I said, you know what you can do? I said, once you finish doing your shopping, go to Primark and buy a new pair of pajamas, something new, clothing or whatever, and make sure that you get it to a child. And there are many that I can introduce you to, and there are places you can give me to give to organizations where we give out things to all different children from all different places, children that have never had a new pair of pajamas. And she actually did it for a little while. I don't know, I haven't seen her for a bit, but I found, it can also, even when there are things that we do get pleasure from, that we think we shouldn't, we can do it in a way that we say, it's okay. It's when it holds me back and stops me from being the best that I can be. And because Rabbi Twersky dealt so much with addictions, with things that held people back, I want you to know that the gift that people give themselves, we look at things and we say, okay, that's just for them. Don't worry, that's for them. But it's about ourselves. And that's why each of us needs to take the look and say, what is the place that I want to be redeemed from? How can I wake up in the morning and feel like a person who is free or learning how to be free from that challenge? And sometimes it's going to be a little bit harder and a little bit more work. But there are times that we can do this. And there are times we can do it little steps at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. And maybe we need to read a little bit more while we're cooking, while we're baking, put on something to listen to. Just choose the things that we know speak to us. Create a space and a place in ourselves that our spiritual place is that place that's going to give us a place of calm. And you know why? As soon as we forget that Hashem is in charge and that Hashem sends our parnasa and Hashem gives us all the things that we have, and Hashem is the one that is going to have the outstretched arm that is going to take us out of Egypt, and we put out our hand and we hold his and we allow him to carry us. We've got to do the work. You can't just sit there and do nothing. But we have to remind ourselves that. And when he gives us that gift, we give it to ourselves. And that gift is the thing that we give to ourselves, that we say, oh, we are so blessed. And I took myself back this week as well. There's been a lot of Pesach thought, obviously, because that's all people are thinking about and talking about and all the thing. But it's a good thing. It's good. And I reminded myself of a Pesach Seder in my grandparents' home. And our Seders, I thought, were the best, and they were wonderful. And had we all known then that it was better to do a Seder with a lot of the English explaining what was going on, I think it probably would have been easier for everybody actually to enjoy the actual part of the Seder, not just waiting for the yummy food. But I remembered a time when somebody said, well, maybe we can just skip a little bit. I had absolutely no clue what it was and why I was so adamant that I was going to say every single word of the Seder. I don't know why. But I remember my grandfather saying, and I was the only one that was like the adamant one, and he said, we will do the whole Seder. And it's such an incredible gift, because when all of us recognize where we go back to, and we recognize what we have to pass on, what we have is a gift. And it's what we take from where we come from and build on, and that we pass on. And the incredible world that we have, and the incredible people that we have. And each and every one of us sitting together with a want and a desire to bring the world to being a better place, that is huge. It's huge because we're all in it together. And the nicest thing is that we share it, and we're not alone. So when we are like that, it gives us a feeling as well of saying it's okay. This is great. So we're going to be able to utilize the time before Pesach, the time during Pesach, to be able to thank Hashem for absolutely everything and to bring him into our world and our lives and to make sure that he stays here together with us. I'm going to get my dough from the warming oven, okay, where it's been rising. If anybody has any questions, if anybody has anything that they would like to add, this is the time to be able to share. And I really thank everybody for being here. And I think that it's a good opportunity also to really thank all of you and everybody for being together in this journey that we started a year ago. And that our journeys together should just always continue. And, you know, I think that, and we look at where we're all from and where we've all come from, and we've all come from all different places, but you know what, where we all go back to? We all go back to Mitzrayim, you know, we all go back to coming out together, we all go back to standing at Har Sinai together, and our journey, okay, after Pesach, from Pesach, is going to be the next journey of reminding ourselves of the growing and the inspiring ourselves and others